In the words of our famous squad show leader, bang, 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 the Cowboys upset number 16, BYU in Gametime. Yeah, we stormed the court. We haven't had a reason to storm the court in years, so you leave us be.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State. We get to do this a live show. Shout out to all of our Big 12 brethren. This is an exciting time for Cowboy basketball. There's been some people that have been kind of down on Steve Lutz somewhat recently. We're going to explore why maybe he's got some breathing room now. Maybe Oklahoma State has turned the corner. That was a completely different ball club that we just saw play. What a huge difference between that and the Iowa State game. And I'll tell you what, getting into this whole ordeal, I was just listening to a little bit of the postgame interviews with Anthony Roy and Parsa Fala, and Parsa hit the nail on the head. Parsa summed up precisely what has happened and why Oklahoma State should now be looking entirely different throughout the course of the season. And even though Arizona will no longer be taking Oklahoma State lightly, it's fun to see this talent finally flourish, to finally see what they could potentially end up being. This is a bubble basketball team that should be able to make the NCAA tournament. That's what we've been hooting and hollering about all year. To see it finally come to fruition, it feels like that Texas A&M win was so long ago with a completely different ball club. And that Iowa State, it was an ass whooping. That's what it was. That kind of feels like the wake-up moment. That kind of feels like the moment that galvanized everybody, that forced us to do things differently, to play differently, to put forth, I don't know, this crazy thing called effort. That's the brand of basketball we've been hoping to see under Steve Lutz in his entirety. He hasn't been here long, but he's an Eddie Sutton-style disciple. He talked about when he took this job, growing up, watching Eddie Sutton, seeing the crowds in Gallagher-Iba was something that he always paid attention to. He always wished it would get back to that once again. The crowd today was actually pretty spectacular, especially given the circumstances that Oklahoma State has not been able to perform in these big games for the most part this season. It's kind of like you got the monkey off your back. Speaking of getting the monkey off your back, ladies and gentlemen, FanDuel is the bee's knees for all of your betting needs, and it's the last call for football. With FanDuel, with the Super Bowl coming up, if you're a customer or new customers, you can bet just $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets if you're a winner. Get with the bee's knees for all of your betting needs. That is FanDuel. Okay, so I want to kind of dive into the post-game interviews. What Parsa Fala was just talking about with Dave Hunziker before we got on here live. Whenever Dave was talking about, well, what happened after Iowa State? Did it take getting down by 30 at home to kind of have, an awakening kind of moment? Parsa said, of course, yes. But more importantly, the difference between then, Dave Hunziker said, well, something has changed in the last week. It seems fairly visible that something is different. And Parsa said, we are learning to play as a team. We are now learning to not be selfish. His words, not mine. And what a breath of fresh air, because all of the animosity in regards to Oklahoma State basketball this season has been in typically regards to the amount of hustle, right? We haven't defended the perimeter with any semblance of gumption. Today we did that. Today we held a BYU team that, maybe they've had a couple losses now, and they may be trying to figure some things out. This is huge for Oklahoma State. This is the message that is being sent to Oklahoma State country. That crowd in Gallagher-Iba, it makes my heart so happy to see. But this win should now catapult the fan base to try to storm Gallagher-Iba more and more and more, just like Anthony Roy just said in the postgame presser. This is what I came here for. Wins like this, games like this, Big 12 matchups like this is why I came to Oklahoma State. He's even said Oklahoma is my favorite town I've ever lived in. Whenever I played at Langston, I had dreams of traveling up the road to play inside Gallagher-Iba Arena for these moments. And we talked about Jalen Montanati and through his commitment process. There was always conversations about how that building, it is a Fog Allen. It 100% is. And I know for a lot of us, we haven't seen that in 15 years. We did have some moments with like LeBron Nash and Markel Brown and Michael Cobbins that those teams Marcus Smart. They were able to pack the house with 13,000 a couple different times, but consistently it hasn't been happening. And I feel like the fan base has been yearning for that kind of wait and see moment. This is it. This is it. And the downside to this, again, is now that Arizona is not going to be overlooking Oklahoma State. Arizona has a crazy 5-6 game schedule coming up. So it almost felt like Oklahoma State could be a team that could slide in and make things interesting in Tucson. I would imagine that anybody on that Arizona roster that watched this ball game is now saying, hold on, that's not the same team we just saw get absolutely destroyed by Iowa State. Everybody knew Anthony Roy could put up 30. He's done it before. Everybody knew Victorious Miller could do the same thing because he's essentially done it before. The emergence tonight out of Jalen Curry, though, that was a different animal. He was the slasher, the guy that could get to the bucket and cause a little bit of chaos in the beginning of the season. And then, he had stretches there that he seemed kind of unconfident in himself, not necessarily confident in the offense. We had moments where Anthony Roy and Victorious Miller would jack up the most ridiculous shots and then not get back on defense. We didn't see that today. It's almost like, they had a come to Jesus meeting in the locker room after the Iowa State game. And for Parsifala to say, we're learning now how to be a team. We're learning now how to not be selfish. That is music to not only my ears, but I'm sure everybody else out there in orange and black-blooded America. What a massive W, and what a perfect representation of the state of Cowboy basketball by the players. That amount of honesty typically indicates a very good locker room presence, and that was the biggest question. The biggest question this year is, again, it's never been about talent. But we've had all of the pieces. We just didn't play defense. We played defense today. And A.J. DeBonsa is not only a first-round draft pick, he's a top 3 pick. There's a possibility that he's a number 1 overall pick. And yeah, he did drop 36 points tonight. But the bulk of that was in the last, 7-8 minutes of the game. We largely held him intact all night. And by the time he got heated up, the game was almost too far out of reach. So we got the dub that we needed. Oh, Mountaineer Paul in the building. What's up, buddy? Yeah, dude, this is great. Like, I cannot talk enough about how excited I am simply because that crowd and the response to getting that kind of dub. Like, when we first started storming the court, I was like, come on. But then I was like, wait a second. It's been some years since we've had a win like this worth storming the court. So you know what? Storm the daggone thing. And just like Parsifala and Anthony Roy talked about after the game, we need more of this. This needs to be a thing. As I've been hooting and hollering for a few years now, in this conference, if you simply just win all of your home games, you could essentially lose all of your road games, and you're probably a tournament team. And yeah, we did lose to TCU. It's an almost unforgivable loss, especially the way it went down. But once again, this team that performed this way tonight, physically, if that team shows up against TCU, we blow them out of the water. So instead of losing a game in the last minute, 40 seconds, or whatever the heck it was that should have never happened, it was, individualistic efforts at times that caused chaos, that caused us to go backwards. You didn't see that. You didn't see that tonight. And again, for all of the regulators, the everydayers, good and daggone well, my biggest emphasis has always been getting Gallagher-Iba back to what it used to be, or at least close. Because as Eddie Sutton used to say, as other coaches, Calvin Sampson, those guys used to say going to Gallagher-Iba was always a 7 to 8 point advantage for Oklahoma State. Always. It didn't matter how good you were, what you were ranked, what your record was. Going into Gallagher-Iba was an 8-point advantage for Oklahoma State 99.9% of the time. We haven't seen that, unfortunately, for 15 years. This is exactly what I think Steve Lutz was trying to get. I think Steve Lutz is so incredibly invested in getting Gallagher-Iba back to that level. Now, you've seen the BYU crowd and how amazing that was virally. One of the other reasons I really like this win is because now when we go to BYU, they're going to be out for blood. So that building is likely to be a magical place when Oklahoma State goes there, and I'm all for it. Another big thing I will say, that I've been disappointed in some of the Big 12 fan bases that have had the F the Mormons chant. I didn't hear that today. I didn't hear anything about anything like that happening today. So good on you, Cowboy crowd, for treating the BYU Cougs the right way as we get this huge W. This has to be the win that gets the fan base re-engaged. Again, I know the crowd was pretty damn good, but we all know it could be better. We all know that is a living, breathing, physical experience when it has 13,000 in it. It doesn't even have to be full, all right? You don't even have to get to the 13.7, 13.8 number. 12.5. Look at wrestling. We're getting 12,000 in wrestling, 10,000 in wrestling. We just broke a single season wrestling attendance record for the third year in a row. And this is a team that has 34 national titles. That is Gal-Gariba. And again, what was giving me hope that we could get a basketball fan base like that again was seeing 10,000, 12,500 in Gal-Gariba for wrestling this year. What an experience for those players. And even more so, why Gal-Gariba has to be a rockin' rowdy arena once again, recruiting. We had another top 10 recruiting class under Steve Lutz in his second year. Last year, he didn't really get a chance, right? He got started late. So the pickings in the transfer portal by the time he got the Cowboy job were pretty slim. And then what did he do? But somebody correct me down in the comment section because I know I'm going to get it wrong. But essentially, he won, 6 of the last 9 or something to that effect to even get us into the NIT. And then he won a couple games in the NIT that we didn't anticipate him winning. And then he goes out and has a really, really good portal class. And then he lands Jalen Montanati, not only the number 1 player in the state of Oklahoma, but a legacy legend that did what? He played for Eddie Sutton in those crazy Gal-Gariba days. And when we had Caleb Boone on this show, he talked about, I chose Oklahoma State because I went to a game with 10,000 plus in the building. And it's a physical experience. The Fog does that. Right? KU does that. BYU does that. Arizona does that. Texas Tech can do that. Houston can do that. West Virginia can do. We have so many arenas in the Big 12 that aren't talked about enough. And Gal-Gariba is the second best. Okay. I know some BYU fans may disagree, but the Fog is legendary. It's the reason I would put the Fog over BYU. I know it's a crazy atmosphere right now. I know you got AJ DeBonsa, but KU's been doing the exact same thing for 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, right? Before Bill Self was Roy Williams, it was the Fog. That was when Gal-Gariba was Gal-Gariba. But to see that today, it's got to be a huge uplift for recruits. We just got a McDonald's All-American. I'm sure Mr. Allman was watching this game tonight. And I'm sure he could look at this and say that's why I wanted to come here, because of that crowd. Crowds make things happen. Momentum is a real thing. I don't know why it's kind of a faux pas to pretend that momentum isn't a legitimate thing in sports, but it is. And a decent portion of momentum is predicated upon the crowd. And we've seen it in Boone Pickens Stadium. How many other coaches have said, we hate going to Boone Pickens Stadium? When they're good and the sideline's so tight and the way the stadium is oriented and with Gal-Gariba right there and the sound reverberates off of the building, it's crazy. But I've always said it. For all of you out here in Oklahoma State country that have been to Boone Pickens Stadium, that have seen the big-time Bedlam Dubs, that have experienced some Texas wins in Boone Pickens Stadium, no matter how great of an experience you ever had in Boone, I can promise you it doesn't compare to Gal-Gariba. When Gal-Gariba is 13,000 strong every single week, Boone Pickens can't compare. The only thing I've ever felt that was even close to a traditionally rowdy, rocking Gal-Gariba was the 2023 Bedlam. And that's partially because they allowed like 61,000 people in there, which, yeah, I'm sure that there's some like fire code risk or something there. I don't know. But I thought it was amazing. I was so happy that they let so many people get in there. Right? There's no way all of those people had tickets because There's not that many seats in Pickens Stadium. But that was a physical experience. You felt that. Gallagher-Iba does that every single time you step into the friggin' building. If we can get it there. If you build it, they will come. Well, we already built it, right? Henry Iba built it. Eddie Sutton built it. Steve Lutz now gets to finally experience this. And again, it's beating a dead horse. If we want to keep having top 10 recruiting classes, if we want to start talking about having the number one class in America in the next 2 to 3 years, it will be because of what Gallagher-Iba does. That is an experience that you can't sell at a handful of other places all across the country. So, yeah, I'm insanely excited. We're going to cover a couple more things here, and then we'll get deep into the comments. But before we do that, I do have to remind the fine folks out here that there's a lot of things in life that sneak up on you, and tax season is typically one of them. So don't get caught behind the 8 ball as tax season approaches. Have no fear, TurboTax is here. Tax season just doesn't have to take over your life, though. This year, TurboTaxes make it easier than ever to just hand things off to the right professional and move on about your business. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or extra unnecessary guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2, self-employed forms, and they work to get you every single deduction physically possible. You can upload your documents, go on about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local. That is TurboTax.com/local. Go there to book your appointment today, and don't let tax season drag you down. All right, segment 2 here. This is where we get a little bit more interactive. Comment section. All right, hit me, Gooses. Is this the win that gets some of the negative Nancy's off Steve Lutz's you-know-what backside? Because I'm sure you guys have all seen it over the last week and a half, 2 weeks. There's been a lot of people on social media, and I know social media is not always a representation of a fan base. I get that. But there has been a lot of negativity. There has been a lot of people saying, see, I tried to tell you, Steve Lutz was never the answer. Steve Lutz isn't the guy. This is another wasted contract. But Chad Weiberg, it's going to look like Mike Boynton. It's going to look like Travis Ford. I don't think we can say that now. Now, I have been one of those individuals that has been saying I don't think we're out on Lutz by any stretch. If you watch the Auburn game, if you watch the Texas A&M game, if you watch the Northwestern game, hell, if you watch the NIT tournament in the last week of the season last year, you could see that the X's and O's portion of the Cowboy basketball has increased substantially. Talent, recruiting, that was always easy to some degree under Travis Ford, under Mike Boynton. Why? Yeah, you can say it's partially because of Gallagher-Iba. But now you look at what Steve Lutz is doing with this recruiting class. Is it time that the fan base gets fully behind Steve Lutz? Now, I know if we go on and beat the number one team in America that is undefeated, far and away the best team in the country, not just the Big 12, but there's a reason Arizona is walking through people like they're just wading in water, hanging out at the beach. Arizona is a machine. And when you got 7-footers, 7'2" dudes, and you're number one in the country in rebounds, it's going to be a difficult proposition. So you got to win the big ones at home. And that's exactly what we did. Protect G.I.A., and I think everything else will sort itself out. Not only in the wins and losses department, but again, in the recruiting, in the, sustenance portion. And I firmly believe that Steve Lutz is the kind of guy that will stick it out at Oklahoma State for the long haul. I also partially believe that because of the investment. Right? What was it 2 years ago? Our basketball budget was like $1.2 million, something to that effect. Last year, it crawled up to 2.6-ish or something, or this year. There's rumors that we've got people that are willing to invest 10 to 12 mil next year in basketball. And part of that is to keep Steve Lutz. Now, do we want to tiptoe through the tulips into another Travis Ford 10-year debacle? No, we do not. But if Steve Lutz is the guy and Steve Lutz can keep producing it this way, it's time. It's time that we all just kind of rally around him. Because again, I cannot accentuate this enough. If you haven't experienced that Gal-Garaiba thing, phone a friend. Right? It's like the old man get off my lawn thing. I understand that. But if you go and experience it, you'll understand precisely what I'm talking about. And this is huge. If recruits can come to Gal-Garaiba and we know there's always going to be 10, 12, 14-ish thousand people in the building, we will have top 5 recruiting classes year in, year out, no matter what. Why was Travis Ford always getting top 10 recruiting classes? Why was Mike Boynton? Again, that building holds so much historical respect that it invoke feelings. It does invoke emotions. If you're sitting there courtside watching a game on the oldest basketball court in America, the only original basketball court in America, we have so many things going for us. And now, again, if you're getting this donor investment to potentially kick in 10 to 12 mil next season, what we saw tonight could become commonplace. Oklahoma State could once again get rid of the dinosaur days that people like myself, keep painting pictures of. It's because we haven't seen it. It's crazy to me that there's not a single student on that campus that has ever experienced a real Gal-Garaiba. Like, again, getting 12,500 in there for wrestling, for Bedlam, awesome, amazing. But wrestling isn't as fast-paced as basketball. So wrestling, there's moments where the roof will come off and then the roof comes back down. In basketball, again, go watch the BYU game. Go watch the KU games. Arizona, their fan bases are wild all game. We finally got to see some of that, feel some of that, experience some of that. If you can't tell, I am happier than a pig in a poo farm at this very moment. Like, this is what I've been waiting on. Through growing up, nostalgic-wise, going to a football game, it was cool, right? It was fun. Going and watching R.W. McQuarters, it was awesome. Tony Lindsay, great. But Gal-Garaiba was the ticket. Allie P. Reynolds was the ticket. And I didn't know if we'd ever get back to that. I didn't know if we would ever get close to being a school that could claim to be a basketball, football, simultaneous program alongside baseball. Right? But maybe this is the year. Josh Holliday understands there's some pressure for him to perform. And Steve Lutz knew that there was pressure for him to perform. And I think a lot of us, myself included, kind of felt like that all year we were going to be a team that could offensively compete with everybody. We were a team that offensively could pop up and do some crazy things and make some crazy things happen occasionally. But consistency was a question mark. I don't know. It's a different ball club that we just witnessed. Maybe it's a flash in the pan, right? Maybe we go to Arizona and we look like the same team that got absolutely destroyed by Iowa State. Doubtful. But let's be fair, right? If you go to Arizona and you lose by, say, 8 or 9, I don't want to get into the it's okay to lose territory, but you just beat the number 16 team in the country that has what some people are calling the number 1 overall pick. If you go to Arizona and you perform admirably, even if you don't get a dub, I think that is a quality loss that you could potentially see that March Madness rolling around puts into consideration. Maybe not. But before we jump into segment 3 here and dive into a lot of the comments, go over some of the stats. Of course, Anthony Roy dropped himself a 30-burger Victorious Miller chipped in another 14 points. Parsa Fala, the leader, the captain, the guy that I think we probably rely on the most to keep the entire team orchestrating the way they're supposed to be. He chips in another 13 points. Christian Coleman has himself 10 points. Jalen Curry had the best game of his life at Oklahoma State. Yeah, he had a game earlier this season where he dropped, 29, 30 points. But it was against like Nickel State. Putting up 18 points against one of the best teams in the country and doing it in a very impressive way, right? Kanye Clary and Jalen Curry, up until today, seemingly were two entirely different players. Today was a little bit of Jalen Curry taking on some of that, that role that Kanye Clary provides. Kanye Clary is typically, the assist guy. Jalen Curry is typically the drive guy. That was a maturation moment we just witnessed out of Jalen Curry. And we finished 1 point shy of a hundo. 99-92 W for the Cowboys. Absolutely phenomenal. We can put up points. I mean, we've known that. But how about this? 33% from the three-point line, money. 55% from the field, flawless. 65% from the free throw line. You want that a little bit better, right? It could have got a little sketchy down at the end if we would have, gotten to a free throw for three throw battle, and it didn't work out in our favor. But look at BYU, 50% from the field, which is really, really good. 43% from three-point line. Remarkable. 76% from free throw line. So statistically, what does that tell you? It's that the Cowboys won this game off of fight, heart, grit, tenacity, effort. The things we haven't seen this year. Now, it feels like this may be a game that turns the corner. Unfortunately, we have the toughest test of the season now coming up to Arizona, but we get to do it with a little bit of a different level of confidence. We get to do it again. If Parsafala said, we're learning now how to be a team, we're learning now how to not be selfish, if that is, in fact, accurate, and we take that same resolve and mentality to Arizona and we give them a hell of a game, I promise you, I will go live hooting and hollering. I might even throw around a few curse words if G.I.A doesn't see a boost. If you go to Arizona and you lose by 8-9 points, G.I.A needs to be packed. Again, seeing that tonight, it was great. But we all know it wasn't even close. Not even the same hemisphere of what it can be, what it used to be, what it needs to be again. I cannot emphasize enough how many players I've talked to, even football players, that have happened to do some semblance of a recruiting visit in basketball season. If that place is rocking and it's packed, it does things. It does things that is really hard to replicate. I mean, you can't teach what that building provides. Just like you can't teach about the historical nature of Oklahoma State without having wins, without putting up a competent effort, without having legitimate X's and O's to scheme your way into W's. We have that now. And it's crazy. It's crazy. How exciting. What a day. Oh, now we get to talk about National Signing Day, where I had my proudest moments as a father as well. Well, we'll hit an ad real quick. FanDuel is here, and football season is almost not here anymore. So it's time for you to be a part of it, right? This is the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season is officially over. Super Bowl 60 is upon us, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, you're riding with the underdog, or you're building a same-game parlay, this is the game that everybody's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's a perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, you bet just $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets if you're a winner. Make it count, because after this Super Bowl, the season's over. It's the last call for football on FanDuel, the official sports book partner of Super Bowl 60, where I hope to see the New England Patriots get themselves a Super Bowl dub because my friend's university, Falcons, has an alumnus that is rocking for the Patriots. So shout out to Jeremiah Farms. Hopefully you get you a Super Bowl ring. Bring it on back to Wichita. Friends Falcon Nation will be proud as all get out. Head on over to FanDuel.com today to get squared away with the bee's knees for all of your betting needs. All right, so Jeremiah Farms gets to suit up and potentially win himself a Super Bowl ring, rocking for the Friends Falcons. Obviously, today is National Signing Day. It's late. We're live for a reason. I've been incredibly busy. My son finished signing today with Friends University. And you know what? I've had some of the parents, some of the Oklahoma State parents reach out and tell me, we want to hear about your son. You always talk about our kids for your show. Can you talk about your kid a little bit? Okay, so here I am. I am extremely proud of him because his recruiting, it was wild for a while. Then he had an injury, slowed down for a little bit, and then it picked back up. And then he had this opportunity, and he took a few visits, and Friends rolled out the red carpet. Right, the way that they treated him was D1-esque. I was blown away. I can assure you, my recruiting experience didn't go anything like that. But they treated him absolutely remarkably. And then, drive home, have a lot of conversations. He's extremely excited. He feels like he's part of the family. He wants to commit. I was like, hey, listen, man, I don't want you to get in a scenario where you're committing and decommitting and, you know what I mean? Like covering this for a living and covering some, high school 7-on-7 kids that have gone through this. I don't want to see you do that. And he was like, no, Dad, I want to be a Friends Falcon. I was like, yeah, but you know what I mean? I think you should be. Right? I would love you to be, but give it a little bit of time, right? I mean, you're getting more D2, D3 opportunities. You're talking to more JUCOs. Some of the scholarship opportunities are getting better. So maybe you should wait. He's like, no, Dad, I'll give it a few days, but I think I want to commit. He gave it a few days. He said, I want to commit. All right, cool. You committed. And then his recruiting actually increased. It's crazy. It's kind of like sometimes when you get married, then all to become suddenly you become more attractive magically. Kind of the same concept. Once he committed, other opportunities started coming in. And so I was telling him, listen, dude, you could potentially find yourself in a position where you're going D2 right away. Or if you wanted to, you could just roll it out. This is up to you. And you know what? My dude, he rocked with Friends. Even when bigger schools kind of started hollering, even when other universities offered, a little bit more scholarship percent-wise, he was true. He was loyal and true to FU, and I'm greatly appreciative. And then again, when it came to the signing the national letter of intent, we sat down, had like a family meeting, and again, I was like, dude, once you sign this, this is it. Like, we're not gonna go back and forth. I don't even care if Wichita State or Cali County give you the call of a lifetime. Once you sign this daggone thing, you're not gonna go back and forth. So give it some time. That dude gave it like 82 minutes. And he said, I'm ready. He's like, Dad, they treated me right. They gave me a vision for my future on why I could be successful. I felt like I was part of the family. They told me I was part of the family. And now, and I get to go play for a coach that coached for 5 years at KU, 3 years at K-State, a couple of years at Kent State, and spent multiple seasons coaching AAA, AA ball. So not only was it Friends University treated him so incredibly well, and they made him a priority, it was just inclusive. Meeting the football coach and getting to talk to some of the football players, all of that went a long way. And that is why my son stayed true to FU, and he is now officially a Friends Falcon. And in this wild world that I cover every single day, and you're hearing about people committing and decommitting, and they sign their national letter of intent, then they want out of the national letter of intent. And then like I know some boys, I coach some boys that signed today that never took a visit to that school, that don't know anything really about that school other than that school they need them. They need people. The recruiting experience matters. And the recruiting experience that Friends University rolled out for my son was so spectacular that every single school that called and emailed and texted him after that, it didn't matter. So I'm incredibly proud of the young man that he's grown into. Because again, I wanted him to respect the process. And there was a couple different times I thought maybe he was rushing the process. He didn't do that. He stayed true. And I'm incredibly proud of him. And we also had National Signing Day for some Cowboys. Obviously, I've been rocking and rolling for quite some time today, so I haven't got to dive into a lot of film. We'll do that tomorrow. We also have a crossover episode coming out tomorrow with Locked On Arizona host to talk about the Arizona basketball, talk a little bit about AZ football as well. But yeah, I'm very excited about the Cowboys class today. As we talked about a few times throughout the course of the last couple of months, we had some holes that we needed to fill. Is the February 4th National Signing Day as big anymore? No, not necessarily with the early signing day. That's typically the meat and taters of your class. But the biggest need that we had was definitely, without a doubt, defensive tackle. And yeah, we were able to plug a couple holes in, this previous round of transfer portal additions. But when you go out today and you have success and you fill a gap, we need more help at the defensive end spot. Jaleel Johnson is about to graduate. Landon Dean's about to graduate. Sean Brown's about to graduate. So the fact that we were able to go scoop up some of these individuals athletically that can do a multitude of things has me extremely excited. And getting Malik Bracey back in the fold, I know we already did an episode about him, but that was one of those guys that whenever he decommitted, it sucked, right? It hurt the heart. It stung a little bit because he was committed for quite some time. And even with the Mike Gundy going into, the Eric Morris turmoil, it felt like he could be a crucial piece, Oklahoma State moving forward. So for him to come back around, sign today, I think it's absolutely massive. And it's also a credit to the recruiting capabilities of the staff. Picking up Robert Dale Jr. Out of the JUCO ranks. If you watch this film, again, we're going to highlight most of this tomorrow. But there's a reason that he got an offer. As a free safety, he runs routes better than most of the wide receivers he's going up against. His stats, tackles, it's crazy. We'll dive into more of that a little bit tomorrow, but I wanted to hit on it. I love getting Joey Quinn, 6'6", 250, out of high school. We don't recruit the Chicago area often. I mean, I don't know if ever. So, again, it accentuates the point that this staff has a little bit more reach. They can do a little bit more things, or at least they're willing to do so, as compared to the previous staff. Joey Quinn, he's a multiple athlete dude, a really good tight end. Likely is coming to Oklahoma State to just play defensive end, which is insanely exciting. I talked about the defensive tackle spot. We had to get more big body beasts down low because we just don't have enough. As it sits right now, we don't have enough. Hell, we could have grabbed 3 or 4 of them today, and it maybe would have been enough then. But to see us go out and get Savion Barthélemy to flip from Washington State, huge, absolutely huge. And the projections are that he could easily get to 310, 315, currently sitting 6'3", 285-ish. Massive position of need. So that fills a huge void. And then Davon Standard, you guys know I like my film. I've been watching film on him the last couple of days. 6'4", 180-pounder. He's a high point specialist. Like, again, we're going to dive into this stuff yesterday, but I will leave you with a little breadcrumb going into yesterday. Mr. Standard is very reminiscent to me of a Marcel Aitman, if that gives you a little bit of an incentive for tomorrow. All right, the last few minutes of the show, let's dive into the comments section. Always fun. Bada boom. Jack says, I agree. College kids at the end of the day. That's good. Yes, I'm on Oates is coming back. I'm glad you asked. Yeah, it seems as though there was some speculation on whether he was or was not going to get an extra year of eligibility from the NCAA. It appears as though that has happened, and it seems like a formality at this point in time that he will, in fact, be an Oklahoma State Cowboy come spring. So, yeah, exciting news. But, if something changes, if for whatever reason it doesn't happen, like I said, I've been told it's like 98% good to go. But the NCAA is the NCAA. Okay, if I can steal this from Jack here, college kids, the NCAA will NCAA Oklahoma State at every turn that they can. A BYU fan in here, congrats on the dub. Don't know what to say about my team, to be honest. You guys are remarkable. Like, don't get it twisted. I like this dub because of what it's going to do when we go to BYU. This should ignite your fan base. Not that you need any ignition, right? We've all seen the viral clips of your fan base and how absolutely insane that arena is. It's on my bucket list now. Before the season, going to Provo for football, that's been on my bucket list since I was a kid. Ever since I found out Steve Young was a BYU Coug, I've wanted to go check out a game at Provo, Utah. I did not know that checking out a basketball game in Provo was equally as important. And now that we get this dub in Gallagher-Iba, BYU fans should be foaming at the mouth a little bit to get some retribution. So I cannot wait for that game now, because your crowd is probably going to feed into your team so much that it's going to make it an incredible ball game. You know, you have one of the top 3 best players in America. You have a lot of depth. You have a lot of versatility. You're going through a little bit of a rough patch. And as your coach talked about, sometimes you need this adversity to find out what's on the other side. We, just a week ago, were getting our head bounced around the court by Iowa State to the tune of almost 30 points. I mean, hell, they were up by 30. They took the pedal off the gas. They were kind to us at the end of the ball game. But without that absolute drubbing, we probably don't get this dub. We probably don't come closer together as a team. We probably, don't, cancel out some of the selfish plays that had been happening previously. You didn't get your head bounced around the court today. You didn't get beat up by any stretch of the imagination. You just got beat by a team that has had that level of talent, right? Anthony Roy, Victorious Miller, Parsifala, they've shown all year they can put up 23, 24, 34 points. They can do that. But it was our defense that was horrendous. It was our inconsistency, our inability to stop the turnover margin from getting a little crazy. We just played undisciplined basketball, which was crazy because that's what Steve Lutz is. Steve Lutz is a disciplined X's and O's kind of guy. So to see all of this talent, but not the X's and O's, tenacity that you expect with it, it was kind of crazy. So maybe this is the loss that you guys needed on the road to get yourself rocking and rolling again. All right, back to the comments. UHH says, not reflective on the fan base as a whole. Find them and move on. I'm probably missing the context. That's one of the downsides to going to the comments at the end of the show. But what were your thoughts on the chants during the game? Yet I didn't hear any of the F the Mormons chants, thankfully. And if there were somebody please correct the record, because I didn't hear it. And I certainly expect the Oklahoma State fan base to never participate in that kind of thing. I'd at least like to think that most of our fan base is well above that kind of nonsense. Middle of Oklahoma, Bible Belt, we typically respect, different iterations of faith without being overly disrespectful. So I can honestly tell you, I don't think I'll ever hear an F the Mormons chant in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I don't think it's ever happened. This comment almost insinuates that there was some F the Mormons chants. Okay, here's somebody saying there was. I didn't hear that. Again, somebody let me know that when was that? I did hear all of the overrated chants, which that's kind of dumb, right? Because they're not overrated. They're a top 20 ball club. They're still a top 20 ball club. You can't say AJ DeBonce is overrated. He dropped 36 points in not one of his best games. So, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, before we leave, I would like somebody to jump in and verify whether there was F the Mormon chance. I would be insanely disappointed because, again, when I heard Colorado fans do it or Cincinnati fans do it, I was hooting and hollering on X that would never happen in Stillwater, America. Thankfully, we don't operate that way. We don't conduct ourselves that way. And most of the people in and around Stillwater, America are of faith. So, yeah. I didn't hear it. I would definitely go back and listen, because if we did, I would surely change my tune, because I can't stand that. Like that F the Mormons chant. I wish every single time I don't know what the fine is now, but they should quadruple it. Like, I firmly believe that anybody with that chant should be fined $150,000 type of thing, because you have to put an emphasis on the fans to not do it. And it seems as though more often than not, people skate around the fact that it should never happen at any university anywhere. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't want to get on some long diatribe about, my feelings about that. But I just tell you this. If I heard somebody doing it, I'd probably be going to jail that day for assault. I just put it to you that way. If I heard somebody yelling F the Mormons, I would gladly, I would gladly participate in some extracurricular activities. Is what it is. I'm an Old Testament type fella. Call it what you want. Denver says, great win that we needed. The kid from BYU's real deal. Boys played great, but Clary needs to make free throws. If that game was closer, he could have cost us. You could say the same about Victorious Miller when it comes to crunch time free throws, which is ironic. Like, we have a couple wins this year because of crunch time free throws being made, but there has been a couple games. TCU is a loss, and part of that was because that last minute and 40 seconds where they kind of made their comeback, we kept going 1 for 1 at the free throw line and giving them unnecessary opportunities. Went to high school with Marcus Smart. That had to have been cool. That had to have been really cool. KU has the rules of basketball housed in the fog. Yeah, so James Naismith created the game of basketball, but guess who was the first coach he had help him? It's pretty obvious, but I'm going to let somebody get up in here. I covered it just a little bit ago. I'm on Oates. I've heard that the NCAA is going to give him likely this extra year, and he will be here likely for spring. But obviously there hasn't been like official confirmation. So I don't know what could potentially change that scenario. But everything I've heard is good news. So there is that. Any more comments in here? We were dominant. I wouldn't go that far, UHH. I wouldn't say we were dominant. The chances I thought we were going to lose this game was negative 50%. Needed that quad 1 dub. Okay, so another thing before we do skedaddle on off here. Dave Hunziker said after the game, that's our first quad 1 win of the season. Isn't A&M number 1 in the SEC? So wouldn't this be our second quad 1 win? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. I mean, hell, I'm wrong. I'm wrong a decent amount of time in my life. Joe Brogan, what's up, buddy? Dude, if you're still on here, all right, and you don't get your happy tookus in the Gallagher Iba Arena, that might be worthy of a trip to Stillwater, just to jump down your you-know-what, okay, buddy. Joe Brogan is a good old buddy of mine from high school. Mountaineer Paul, appreciate you stopping in here. Locked on Cougs, Jake Hatch in the building. What's up, buddy? Jake says dropping in to say congrats on the dub, off to sulk in the corner. I don't play. I don't know what to say, man. You guys aren't Utah, right? If this would have been a Utah dub, I'd be talking crap. I'd be having fun with it. But I love BYU, so I can't I can't revel in this loss for you guys, except for the fact that I got to see Oklahoma State University put a really good crowd on hand, and then that really good crowd got to storm the court. Oh, he is in the building. I have been at the games, bruh. I still have cold beer in the fridge to get your ass to town. Well, you know what? I did tell some of the Cowgirl basketball staff that I am planning on coming to at least a game this year. Obviously, my fun little hospitalization surgeries for Christmas and all that crap, that didn't help. But I can say we're on the uphill climb. Healing is going great. Just got word 2 days ago that one of the 2 remaining blood clots, it's broken up naturally on its own with the new blood thinners. So if this other blood clot will go away, I'll be cooking in hot oil, ladies and gentlemen. ESPN bracketology has 11 Big Ten teams and 10 SEC teams, only 7 Big 12 teams. Yeah, something broken at Disney. You know what? Stay tuned. I'm going to cover some of that tomorrow with our Locked On Arizona guest. Make sure you go check out what he's got rock and rolling. Fairly new to Locked On, but Locked On's doing some major things. It's incredible to see the growth of Locked On. It was fairly simplistic when I started a little over 3 years ago. There's a lot of advanced metrics involved now, but there's also, a lot more interest, and there's a lot more ad dollars, and, they're making major moves and doing partnerships, and it's crazy. Like, we just had a huge corporate meeting the other day, and there's some things we can't announce yet, but trust and believe when we start announcing it, it'll be pretty crazy to see some of the traditional outlets like ESPN kind of fall in viewership, outside of guys like Pat McAfee, of course. And then to see what Locked On has done, it's pretty crazy. Incredibly blessed to be here. I'm incredibly blessed that this is a company that, has been rocking with me through some of the medical stuff, because as the company has continued to climb and get new massive contracts, I mean, hell, we just had Gary Patterson as a host, a weekly host. Now, of course, he's taking a DC job at USC, which some could consider to be a demotion, but, we'll leave that one be. It's incredible to see what's happening, to be a part of it, to have a company back you as much as they have backed me. Y'all know I am not your traditional professional broadcast journalist, but I'm a dude that bleeds orange, that loves statistics, that loves film, that loves traveling the country, covering 7-on-7, and get to know some of these guys and make these connections. I just love what I do. And I always said my whole life, if I could ever be in a position to help give Oklahoma State fans even a minuscule amount of extra information, I'm going to try to do it. I would love to be able to do it, because to me, Oklahoma State had so much success for 18 years that should have been a bigger national brand. But for whatever reason, we didn't seem to get the same media outlets and respect nationally to kind of get ourselves out there. And even if this shows only a 0.0003% increase, I'm all for it. I bleed it. I love it. I've been season ticket since 1997. So I don't know. I appreciate all of you. Right. It's been crazy growing this channel. Like, when we started, we had 337 subscribers. When I took over, we just passed 10,000, which we got to give kudos to Paul, right? Paul filled in. So, there's 150-ish subscribers that were all Paul. So shout out to you, my Mountaineer buddy, for holding the fort down for me while I was out. But anywho, it's been a crazy day for me, both obviously business-wise, but also personally. So thank you for all of y'all rocking and rolling with me. Tomorrow, we've got to knock out multiple shows. So stay tuned. We'll go over some film, talk about the National Signing Day class more in depth. And some of the changes that have happened and the donors and what the expectations now kind of do for Eric Morris. Breadcrumb, sure you guys could probably put this together. If you spend, $6 million, $7 million on a football roster after a 1-win season, 4 wins is great. If you spend $13 million, which is around about what we paid on this previous roster, and you win 4 or 5 games after a 1-win season, it's not great, but it's almost acceptable. But if you're spending 21 plus mil, I don't know. It's a little bit more difficult. The patience button is a little bit smaller, in my personal opinion. But obviously, I can't wait to see what you guys have to say tomorrow. I appreciate all of you. I haven't done a long live show in a minute. It's been a blast. It's nice to have reasons to get on this and do the instant reaction live show stuff. It's amazing. It's incredible. I appreciate you. I love you all. God bless. Go Pokes. Talons up, baby. I appreciate all of you for tuning in to make this your first. Listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could all be anywhere else. Very, very happy you choose to be here. Make sure you go check out the Portal Pod. Our dude Brian Smith is always breaking down some crazy stuff. And we're going to be doing some stuff together in 7-on-7 this year. So stay tuned for that. He's got his finger on the dial on everything recruiting. So I'm just trying to learn from the people in the biz. And go check out the Everydayer Club. They launched that when I was out. So I'm still learning a little bit about it. But go check it out, get a feel for it, and I'll let you know whenever it's time for all of us to rock and roll so we can have, text thread kind of conversations outside of the show. So if you have questions, you can hit me up and be part of the community. I can tell you there's some new statistics that have come out recently that we're going to get to. I'm waiting on some more to filter in, but RSI is a big deal now, so we're going to kind of dive into what that is tomorrow. But it's advanced plyometrics, right? It's completely different, like light years different than what we've been doing with Rob Glass for the last 21 plus seasons. And speed kills, and it looks like on paper speed has increased. So I don't know. See you tomorrow. Y'all know the drill. Later. Bye. Taters.